Welcome to the Beantown Beatdown. I'm Matthew Barris.
Gabe Chalmers.
Got me some Sangria Blanco right here. And just so you know, we did an episode last week with our friend Prema Johnny, and that's a lost episode. We lost footage, but we found it, so that will be airing today as well as this episode.
Exactly. It's a twofer. It's a double feature.
Yep, so watch that lost episode and then watch this one. Or if you're watching this one for the first time, watch the lost episode. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. So, for our first debate, is Bellator losing too many superstars? Is the UFC losing too many stars to Bellator? Because, as we saw at the Madison Square Garden show, we saw Mike Goldberg there. He was in the, he was part of the announce team. Not the one calling the fights, but he was there with Brendan Schaub and some other fighter, and I think Mauro Ranallo.
All right.
There's also a female fighter, I forget her name at the moment, but her name is Laterno. She just signed with Bellator, as well as Big Country Roy Nelson, who I was very surprised that he signed with Bellator, and Gegard Mousasi as well. And so it does lead to the question, is the UFC losing too many people to Bellator?
So I mean, this is something that clearly you have more expertise in, and this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So like, why? Are those the only examples, or are those just the main examples?
Well, let's see. There's Roy McDonald. I mean, he's been part of Bellator since last year, though, and he had his first fight a while back. Right. And also there's Benson Henderson, who I think a couple of years ago he went over to Bellator. So it's so it also makes you wonder, like, who's her name is Valerie Laterno. So that was the name that slipped my mind. But it also makes you wonder, like, how many stars is the UFC losing to Bellator? Who else is going to be next to maybe jump ship?
Right. I mean, and that's a crazy thing, because I think for most people out there, most of the casual fans or regular people, I think a lot of them, in my opinion, still haven't heard of Bellator. So it's a crazy thing. I know you're going to make the face at me, but I do speak for the people out there that are that, like I said, are just casual fans, or don't really follow this stuff. And I think Bellator is still trying to make its name, whereas the UFC has made its name with all the crossover stars.
Yeah, well, Bellator is easily the number 2 MMA promotion in the world right now.
Right.
I mean, it's easily number 2 right now. With Bellator Kickboxing, Bellator MMA, and they actually have a September 23rd show with both MMA and kickboxing. Of course, they have another show in sometime this month. Right. So, I mean, if I was the UFC, whoever's up for free agency, they better lock them down.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the other thing is, like, how it's, for me, it's not how many are they going to lose, it's how many can they afford to lose. I think it's the other thing. So we're talking about, like, you're talking about, like, the trend, and is it a trend of people leaving for the UFC? That's a good question, but I think
you mean leaving for Bellator?
For Bellator, sorry. So I think it's a good question, but I mean, how I think the question on the directors' minds, and the people that run that shit is how many people can they afford to lose, and how many people can they bring on? How many new people can they bring on, and how fast?
Well, yeah, I know one thing. The UFC, they have better. I mean, I know. I think Mark Hunt still has like maybe 2 more fights left on his contract. Last time I heard, so I know one thing. They had better lock him down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, he was a pain in the ass with the whole after Brock tested positive for PEDs and said that he wanted either he would get Brock's purse or he would quit, and of course changed his mind and fought Derek Lewis later, and. But I would also try to lock down all the current women fighters they have there.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, if I was the UFC, I'd be very, very careful because Bellator could easily take the number 1 spot. I mean, their pay-per-view was awesome, and they're still doing good shows out there. So, if I was the UFC, whoever's contract is coming up, they better lock him down.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And also, getting into our other one, what are our thoughts on the current boxers that are retired? Because there have been some boxers that have announced some retirement in the last few weeks. Robert the Ghost Guerrero, after his last fight was several weeks ago at Premier Boxing Champions, he got knocked down like 4 times in like 3 rounds.
Really?
And yeah, that was a sad way for him to end his career.
Yeah.
Especially when you hear about the story of him growing up in a small town in California.
Right.
His wife having cancer. He took time off to take care of his wife. And and of course his biggest payday fight was with Mayweather.
Right.
He lost that fight, and then he had a war with Yoshihiro Kamega, who's also fighting Miguel Cotto.
Right.
Yeah, so that's going to be sad. And also, Timothy Bradley announced his retirement as well. Juan Manuel Marquez, he announced his retirement. And Miguel Cotto says that December 31st, he's retiring, so he's retiring New Year's Eve. So he's going to fight in August against Yoshihiro, and then he's going to have one more fight in December.
And that's it. Wow. Oh, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I guess it is always painful for the fans to see it. But we've talked on other episodes about how about how I'm still amazed at how early it seems like to me how young these people retire. But I understand that it's a tough sport. It's taxing. So earlier or younger retirements are more common. It's I'm sure fans are feeling the punch. I'm sure that there is always a sad time when a lot of them kind of retire at the same time. But as long as there are new fighters coming in, I mean, it kind of is necessary. It's necessary to have periods of upheaval and of a bunch of people leaving, and you have to, we've talked about when should legends step down as well. Like legends do have to, step down at some point and leave space for the new people coming in, the new guard.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes it happens all at once, and that's actually okay.
Yeah. Well, one man also Vladimir Klitschko is retired too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Mr. Hayden Panettiere. Yep. So I guess he has more. I mean, yeah, it kind of sucks because his last fight was against Anthony Joshua, and Anthony Joshua whooped his ass. I mean, yeah. Well, actually, good riddance. He was, he was kind of bringing him and his brother brought down the heavyweight division. With their boring fights, but at least now he can retire and he can smash Hayden Panettiere. Whenever he wants.
Right. Exactly.
She must have a hard time walking after one night of fucking. Just like,
man. Yep.
Hayden, we need you on the set. I'm coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's one of those things that's too bad, and I'm sure fans say more than that. It sucks. It's terrible. Whatever. But I think just like a lot of professions, you do actually have to have the old guard leave and make space for the new guard, and I think it actually is a kind of a strange cycle of things that it actually a lot of times will happen all at once. A lot of people will leave, but then that's just a opportunity window for a lot of people to come in. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, uh, Timothy Bradley, I was a little shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I thought he still had some good years left.
Right.
And granted, he hasn't fought since the third fight since with Pacquiao, but I thought he still had some good years left in him.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess when it's your time, it's your time. And Juan Manuel Marquez, not too surprised. I mean, because he says he hasn't fought since 2014, and he had a lot of injuries. And plus, keep in mind all those years, all those years of battles and wars with Pacquiao, with Morales, with Marco Antonio Barrera. Of course, he fought Timothy Bradley as well, and then twice he got knocked down by Floyd Mayweather. So there's that.
Yeah.
Miguel.
Speaking of Mayweather, I was gonna say the other thing we should keep in mind is that sometimes they come back. Sometimes they come back from retirement for a grand fight or two. Like Mayweather did.
Oh yeah, of course. So I don't know, and also I was about to say Miguel Cotto. He's been through some wars too. The wars with the two fights with Antonio Margarito, the Mayweather fight, Austin Trout, the war he had with, the one-side ass whooping he got from Manny Pacquiao. So yeah. I mean, who knows, man? This is this is a crazy world we live in fighting. So
yes, a crazy world in general. But yes, exactly.
Yeah. But with these last two fights, hopefully Miguel Cotto can go out on top.
Exactly. That'd be a good thing for him.
Yeah. All right. So now we're gonna get into it's called Get Over Your Weak Wrist, right?
Yeah, weak wrist.
Yes. Now it's time for your weak wrist. So, Gabe, take it away.
All right. So, I talked. You'll see on the last episode, I talked about the President Trump's. I hate saying those words. Ban on transgender people in the military. So anyway, I'm gonna be kind of continuing that thread, talking about the efforts to kind of roll back LGBT rights. I have my shirt on, talking about solidarity, so it's perfect. So yeah, basically there's going to be, as far as I understand, a challenge to the nationwide marriage equality case in the Supreme Court, and I think I would say much of the country, like perhaps the bare majority of the country, I was very pleased in 2015 when they said marriage equality legal across the states, no question. Obviously, for some states, that's not no question, and people like Kim Davis, made a mockery of themselves, I believe, but did try and stand up against this and make their last stand and do a whole thing about it. So part of me wishes there wasn't a challenge, obviously, but I'm sure it's one of those things that it won't actually be settled until another generation looks at it and relitigates it. It's kind of weird to say another generation. That was literally 3 years ago, but things are moving so fast nowadays, then maybe it is kind of another generation. Anyway, so yeah, I really kind of wish there wasn't a challenge, that we didn't have to deal with this again. But that's kind of the thing, is that when there are civil rights landmarks, it's not always over. In fact, it's not over most of the time. My dad was alive during during the time when the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act were passed. And so, right afterwards, there's this great, big, flowery speech on TV by the president, and it was basically saying you cannot intimidate black people, you cannot, push them away from services, and you cannot, and then later on, the next year, you cannot intimidate them away from voting, right? Anyway, so right after that happened, I think the first one in '64, my dad did have some black friends in industry, and he saw that they were continuing to go sit in the segregated areas, and he went and talked to them and said that there's the law now. You're allowed to sit over there. You should come with me and sit over there. Right? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what they said back then? They said, no, we can't actually sit over there. You know what's going to happen if we try? They're going to beat our ass. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they knew that it wasn't actually over just because the president said so, just because there was a law, and that's kind of the constant struggle, is that laws do not change people's minds. You kind of have to change people's minds and hearts with, in other ways in society, and sometimes it takes a long time. And certainly longer than those of us, that are progressive or allies, of these people, would want. But that's just it. That's just kind of like the struggle for equality in general. So anyway, yeah, I don't like that there's a challenge, but I think it will be better for all of us once it is relitigated, and I believe we will win again. We talked last time on the last episode you're going to see that about the transgender ban and stuff, and you kind of said we've already won, the fight's over, and I was like, well, the thing is, yes, culturally we've won, but when it comes to people's hearts and minds, when it comes to it actually being implemented in a fair way, when it comes to being treated as equal citizens, not yet, and not for a while, unfortunately. That's kind of how it goes. Is that just because there's a law, people. We have our resistance to President Trump, right? There's the resistance, but people, on the other side of the aisle will resist in their own way. They'll resist, these laws about equality. They'll resist, the integration of America. So yeah. It's a struggle back and forth, and we kind of, have to stay vigilant and have to win.
Well, yeah, exactly, and. The war still goes on for transgender people, but
oh yes,
I think as long as there's people like Caitlyn Jenner, mm-hmm. Jazz Jennings from I Am Jazz, and whose show I watch, and by the way, I love that show. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that show, and she actually has she actually looks a bit like Leah Michele from Glee.
So, oh, yeah.
Yeah, she has that Leah Michele look.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
mm-hmm.
she's also Italian, too. Mm-hmm. But,
are you talking about Chaz?
No,
okay.
Jazz.
Oh, Jazz. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's also Chaz, who
Cher's son.
Cher and Sonny's son. Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole, Donald Trump, he's, let me tell you something. I've said this before. If that whole, transgender people can't serve in the military, won't get them impeached. Nothing in this world will. Mm-hmm. And also Will and Grace is coming back this fall.
Yes, exactly. So, super pumped for that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what jokes they're gonna do on Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if
exactly.
they do any jokes on Trump.
Right. I can see why they might want to not make it political and stuff. But at the same time, last time we talked about this, you said that it'd be interesting to see what else they could talk about, because again, you said that the war for equality is kind of winding down, but A, no, it's not, and then B, yes, it's a different era, and in some ways it seems like some of these things are finally settled, but really they're not. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what they do in this new era, in this new decade, and yeah. So I think they kind of will have to go political, and they kind of will have to go into social issues, because that's like the only main thing left is to keep letting people know what the actual problems are, I think.
Well, as long as they're funny.
Oh, they're still funny. They're still going to be funny. I have no doubt in that. But yes, that's a good point.
Well, yeah, most definitely. I mean, they're still going to be. I mean, hopefully they'll still be funny. And hold on a second, that's my phone call. Hold on a second, folks. I will turn my phone off right now.
So yeah, this is so yeah, I talked about trans rights last time. Talked about gay rights again this time. I think sometimes basically they kind of are one and the same. That's why originally it was gay rights, and then and people didn't know trans people existed or whatever, and so anyway, the reason it changed to LGBT was to include bisexual and trans people, because no matter what, they are also part of this equation. They were also just as marginalized. Nowadays it seems like they're more marginalized. That's the other thing. If the president had relitigated like Don't Ask, Don't Tell, I think that would have been a complete losing strategy for him. But I think he's doing this now, for his hateful base, and unfortunately, unfortunately, as far as the calculus goes, they still think that that trans people are able to be completely bullied, and that no one will stand up for them. I think it used to be gay people, and now we're too well represented, and we're too good for business, better or worse. But yeah, I think that now they think not enough people stand up for trans people, which kind of was true, but I think they're seeing right now not actually true anymore. But that's kind of like the sad reality of why he's doing it, is that it's still a group that he feels he can target, and and that he won't actually get pushback from that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, man. And but if we don't impeach him, I mean, yeah, we'll be stuck with him for another 4 years. But hopefully something. Something good will come of this, and
right. I think there is good things that have already come of it. I think people are more aware, they're more up on what's actually happening, they're paying attention. Which it's kind of like sad that we had to have such a terrible president to make that happen, but I'm still not going to knock it. Still, still important, still very good that people are waking up and getting active. And yeah, I am all for him being impeached, and and I don't hold any illusions. I know that it would probably mean President Mike Pence, which part of me hates that, but part of me is like, whatever. Still will be better. Still will be better internationally. We had George W. Bush, and he in retrospect, he was not as bad, and so Mike Pence will kind of be like that, except a tiny bit smarter, and and it would still be better for our image around the world.
Yeah, of course. Amen, dude. Amen.
Amen to that.
Yes. Also, I had a wet. For those of you who watched one of our past episodes, I had this one wet dream. Remember the wet dream I had that it was back in the '60s, and you and Christina Hendricks were like married, but of course you guys were pretending. You had to pretend to be married because in the
my beard and such.
By the way, what is a beard?
Beard is the kind of slang term for someone who you pretend to be in a relationship with, to pretend you're straight. So, if you're a gay guy, you find a woman to be your beard, so that you don't actually have to come out, and that people think you're in a regular relationship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well. Yeah, I had I told in one of the episodes that I dreamed that, that you guys were pretending to be married, and that actually me and her were actually fucking each other. We were having a real relationship.
Uh-huh.
Well, I had this wet dream that it was kind of the same thing. Only we were fucking in your room, but her and except as we were fucking, you were like eating vanilla ice cream, and
okay,
yeah, you're just eating ice cream, like, oh, those two are fucking, okay, and then and as we're fucking each other to John Coltrane, and the Coltrane song, by the way, is "Chasing the Train."
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know how good you are with jazz music or anything.
I like jazz a lot, but I don't know that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we were, yeah, I was fucking her, but here's the thing, I was fucking her in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I gave it to her like right up the ass, and she was like, almost to the point of tears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those that don't know, we talk about his wet dreams probably too often, but it's become a staple, I guess, of the show as well.
Yeah. So, well, really, which one of the women of Mad Men would you want as your beard? Like January Jones, Christina Hendricks, or what's her name? Moss. Oh, Elizabeth Moss.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, Christina Hendricks is super hot. I kind of like that, but yeah, I feel like maybe I'd want to go with Moss just to give her, a good chance. It's not actually real anyway, so maybe give her the spotlight to also be married and whatever. Yeah, I think that's probably true. And then who's the one who's is she the one who is Peggy? By the way.
Yeah, Elizabeth Moss was Peggy.
Yeah, exactly. And now up for an Emmy for The Handmaid's Tale, by the way.
Oh, you've been watching it on Netflix?
Yes, Hulu. It's the one that does it. Yes,
okay.
Yes, I finished that. It's very awesome. But yeah, anyway, so I probably would be married to her, just to, like I said, especially back then, she would, she's one of the ones that's, considered less desirable or whatever, might as well give her, a boost up.
Oh, so, but even though, like, you're gay and stuff, would you still fuck her?
Right. Only if she needed to get pregnant. That was the only way. I've thought about that back, nowadays I can give my sperm, and that's much that's much better, and I will do that, for women that I'm close to that need that. But yeah, back in the day, you would pretty much have to fuck her to get pregnant, to get her pregnant. So yeah, I would pretty much only do it for that.
No, well, other than being pregnant, would you still fuck her though? I mean,
you're asking do I think she's fuckable, and would I be kind of attracted enough to do that? Mm-hmm. Possibly, yes. Possibly I would. There are certain women that I have said that yes, I would fuck her if given the chance.
Yeah, it was still amazing how in the dream you're in the kitchen, you're just eating a bowl of vanilla ice cream, and we're just like fucking in your room.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's me. I'm the eunuch in this situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was good. And for our last subject, as you all know, George St. Pierre is fighting Michael Bisping. The fight is back on, and it is going to be taking place November 4th, Saturday night at Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. And what are our thoughts on the fight? This is going to be a huge fight. I don't know if... listen, George St. Pierre has been out for a year. There's Cage Rust, and he's also been doing some movies, and... I don't know. I mean, it's, I think Cage Rush does factor into it, and Michael Bisping is at the top of his game right now, being middleweight champion. But at the same time, this is George St. Pierre, who's considered one of the greatest welterweight champions in the history of UFC. Not only the history of the UFC, but the history of mixed martial arts. Mm. And, this is almost like Sugar Ray Leonard when he came back to fight Marvin Hagler and he beat Hagler. I mean, we could be seeing another Leonard Hagler here.
Fascinating. Yeah.
I mean, you got two. I mean, because Leonard was a great welterweight champion. He was the WBC, WBA welterweight champion.
Right.
WBC super welterweight champion.
Right.
And then, he retired for some years, take some years off from retirement. Mm-hmm. Then came back in '87 and beat Marvelous Marvin Hagler for the middleweight championship of the world. Still to this day, I consider it the number one greatest middleweight fight in boxing. So, I mean, this has the makings of Leonard versus Hagler. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, I don't know who's going to win that fight, but it'll be definitely interesting, and I'm definitely going to watch that fight. Exactly. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's I think you pretty much said, how it's very, very exciting for the fans, and I kind of watch these as more of an anthropological thing, like what does this mean to society? What does this mean to the fans? Etc. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting kind of experiment, and I would definitely be tuning in to see how it goes down.
Yeah, and it's great because almost a year. Because the last time they were at the UFC was at Madison Square Garden. It was their first fight at Madison Square Garden. It was at my birthday too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you and the guys. You were there. We celebrated my birthday watching the UFC.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and of course November 11th it's a Fox Sports 1 UFC fight night. So. I don't know. Maybe, and my birthday actually this year is going to be on the 12th. That's on a Sunday.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Maybe that'll be a day we'll just, maybe we'll just get drunk and go looking for some beautiful women to fuck. If I don't have a girlfriend by then.
Right.
Yeah. So, but, this should be a very interesting, fight. And I can't wait to see what the undercard's going to be for that night at Madison Square Garden. And,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think mixed martial arts pretty soon is going to take over MSG. I mean, boxing has had a strong hold on Madison Square Garden for years. They still do some good fights there. I mean, Terrence Crawford fought Felix Diaz a few months ago, and a few months ago there. But I mean, of course, lately, I mean, the Barclays Center has been a big place for boxing, but Madison Square Garden, with all the years and history with boxing over there, I think pretty soon the UFC is going to take it over. Not only UFC, but the whole sport of mixed martial arts is going to take it over.
Exactly. And I kind of, obviously I don't know as much about it, but I kind of agree. I think it actually will be mixed martial arts from now on because that's kind of, I know that, boxing has the history and whatever, but but nowadays mixed martial arts is kind of like becoming the thing, and you have to, when you're, figuring out what to bill at Madison Square Gardens, it's got to be the thing, you know what I mean? It's got to be like the biggest thing that will get the most amount of people tuning in. And I think that's actually going to be mixed martial arts from now on.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, if the UFC was smart, they would have a double main event because Holly Holmes because they're considering a Cyborg versus Holly Holm fight.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
Yeah, for the women's featherweight title in the UFC. So
right.
I would put that under Bisping and George vs. St. Pierre, make it a double main event.
Right. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely, it'd be awesome. You get a women's bout and you get the men's bout. I mean, the return of one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time, and you get a women's bout between Cyborg and Holly Holmes.
Yeah, and I think that would also bring in a certain other element that might not know as much about the Georgia St. Pierre. Like I having watched the fight with you on the other weekend. Like I now know Cyborg, and obviously I know Holmes from her
knocking out
Ronda. Thank you. I was going to say defeating Ronda. But yeah. So yeah, we obviously a lot of people know that, and that would actually, I think, bring in a whole other demographic as well that might not even see the fight otherwise. So yeah, why not have a double main event, bring in both sides of the aisle, both sides of the coin, shall we say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, of course, Las Vegas will still be the king of fights, but I think. Madison Square Garden, New York City, Barclays Center, it'll make a strong comeback. Not a comeback to be number one, but a strong number two, just like it was back in the 80s and 90s.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm doing some blogs today, more on the best of the middleweights, the best fights of the middleweight division, and I'm going to try and do at least 3 blogs today.
Okay.
I mean, granted, I'm probably right now I'm a little drunk as fuck, but
right.
But I'm still going to try and do it.
All right.
So go to youtube.com/BloodlyKnuckles.tv. Watch this episode and the lost episode we're going to air. Also, hello Prema and her mom Becky Johnny. Hello. And also go to our Facebook page and watch read the blogs, man. Read the blogs leading up to Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin.
All right. So
yeah, we're gonna end it here. Yep. So from Beantown to your town, this is the Beantown Beatdown. Matthew Burris,
Gabe Shamus,
Vios con Dios.